This is the Tropic Pianist Gamers podcast, episode 38. Self-care is gardening. Today I welcome my guest Maggie. Hello Maggie, would you like to introduce yourself properly?
Hi Jen. Yes, lovely to be here. I'm an artist. I work in textiles and mixed media, but my work is very much influenced by gardening. Hence, me being here with this subject today. I create lots of my own work, commissions. I work in mental health 1 day a week, and I write quite a bit as well.
So you're a multi-passionate like me then, sort of creative.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes. Brilliant. So your background was quite a positive one, I hear. So can you tell me a little bit about your background and what led you to what you do now?
Okay. I had a very positive childhood, and we used to live in the city in Wolverhampton. It wasn't a city then, big town, but we moved out into the country when I was 7. I started a new primary school, and from the day I started school there, I was known as Smiler, and it stuck until now. It's always been Smiler. And my parents were very much, we can do it, we'll find out how to do it. There was lots of positivity going on, and life was, I would say, fairly simple, but lots of praise and encouragement, and hopefully I've carried that on with my own children. So how have I got to be doing what I'm doing now? I actually, when I went to decide what to do when I was leaving school, and we have the careers evening, I was really quite guided to follow a secretarial course, something I could go back to. It's loads of my friends of a similar age did the same, because it's what we were encouraged to do as women. And I think, although art was always something I wanted to do, I don't think my parents quite understood. If you went to art school, oh no, what's that like? It's a little bit, an unknown quantity. So it wasn't until I met my husband 30 years ago, or just over 30 years ago, and he encouraged me to follow what I really wanted to do, which was my passion of creativity. So I went to the Open University Textiles, and also City Guilds Textiles. And I went as a mature student. So that was the beginning of me being where I am now.
Oh, fair enough. My mum was a mature student. She went to Loughborough. So
oh, lovely.
Sort of parallels there. So your creative slant. So you started as a textile artist initially, and gardening started later. Can you talk a little bit about your art, maybe?
Yeah, I've always enjoyed gardening. Grew up with a family who gardened. It's that we grew our own veg, and I think the gardening led the art. So it was all about sketching and drawing when I was younger, and I enjoyed making my own clothes as well. So there was a sort of crossover of practical textiles, and then the textiles more of an art form. The gardening has always inspired, or nature has always inspired my artwork. So I would do lots of work in my sketchbooks, which would be quite loose. It might involve notes and things, but nearly always it starts with the garden. And in fact, my husband and I were having allotments, so I'm always doing little sketches, and it's fun as well, the allotment. There's just the nature of it, that you don't buy new stuff and you make things out of old stuff, and you've got tatty sheds, and it's fun.
What's your favourite thing to grow in your garden?
Oh gosh, that's hard to say. I probably would say auriculas, which if you don't know what they are, they're like a lovely little plant that tends to be grown in a clay flower pot, and they come out in early spring, and you just display them. It's quite a Victorian thing, but they're so pretty, and a lot of people don't realise they also have a scent. But they're over and they're gone, and then they flower again next year. And I've got a few fancy ones and a few that I've grown from seed, and they're just fun. But on the allotment, I have a cutting garden, so I grow lots of annuals, some perennials as well, but lots of annual flowers. So I'm always growing different things. So it's hard to pick a favourite, really.
But if you've got an allotment, do you grow vegetables still? And what's your favourite vegetable that you grow, or fruit?
Oh, okay. So my husband does all the vegetable and fruit growing, and Oh, what's a favourite? Well, we used to grow loads of stuff and we'd freeze stuff, and we don't do that now. We grow small amounts of lots of different things that we eat pretty much fresh. There's only very few things we might put in the freezer. But a few years ago, he grew some lovely tomatoes, and it was a free packet of seed on one of his gardening magazines, and they were called Rosella. And they were the sweetest, most gorgeous tomato I've ever tasted. So we'd go and we'd eat them literally like sweets. So that was a favourite.
I love a sweet tomato. The ones I had for lunch today weren't that sweet, so I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So is that your like long-term plan? So you see yourself gardening, well, into the future? Like, are you passing it on to your family? Have you got children or anything?
Oh, absolutely. Well, my parents' garden, my husband's parents' garden, so we both sort of naturally became keen gardeners. There wasn't a point where we thought we will now be gardeners. It was just sort of an inherent thing that you did. And actually in lockdown, it was great because we can walk to our allotment. It's about quarter of an hour, 20-minute walk, and we'd take our packed lunch and go and set ourselves up there. And there's just so much to do, but you can also just sit. You can sit and sketch, or you can just sit and, put your feet up and watch and see, look really closely and see nature going on, see, hear the birds and see the bugs and watch the bees and whatever, it's lovely. But you're saying about the family, my daughter and her husband, they've recently moved house, and the smaller house they had before, the first thing she did was do something with the garden. And then the house they're in now is an older house with a mature garden, and she's just out in it every day, and very aware that it's a really good thing for her mental health. So I think that's definitely something that's been passed on, not necessarily by me, probably more by my grandparents and my parents as well.
Cool. So you're saying about helping mental health. Obviously, self-care is my theme this month. So gardening is your form of self-care, but there's so many elements of gardening. What's your ultimate self-care?
Oh, I think it's the sort of tidying up of the garden I quite like. When everything's got going and you're just regularly just kind of tweaking it a bit. So there's a young gardener called Arthur Parkinson, and he said in one of his books, you don't want to see death in the garden. Which at first I thought, gosh, that's a funny thing to say, but actually he's right, because that's the kind of thing, when some things are finished and you have pretty seed heads, so that's quite nice. But some things, like, when a rose has gone, or maybe it's rained and it's all just like a brown mush, you want to cut the flower heads off, unless you're going to have rose hips, which you would on some. But just that tweaking of the garden I quite like. So it's kind of, I'm not in control, nature's in control, but because it's a slightly cultivated space, you just help it along a bit. So that's quite nice, because it's a soothing thing, and you're looking around and you're looking closely at everything. I'm not that keen on the hand weeding, getting down on my hands and knees.
Fair enough. Making it looking pretty, yeah. My garden's just been pretty. It's at that mushy stage now, but I'm not a gardener, so I'll leave that to the gardeners. So you did mention in your bio that you sent me originally that you had completed 5 projects gardening-wise to date. Which has been your favourite of those 5?
Oh gosh, that's a hard one. I think I would have to say it's actually one that's really close to where we live, and it's some friends of ours, and that's the first one I did during lockdown. And they have quite a modern house, but the garden, they hadn't done a lot to it. They did when they first moved in, but not so much. And I felt it no longer reflected how their house looked inside. So we had a good chat about what we would do. And half of the garden shady and half of it sunny. And she loves to sit in the sun. And he would like to, but he's like me. He's better sitting in the shade, or else he turns bright pink and it's not good. So it was quite a challenge to make the garden a practical space. They're not gardeners, so they didn't want to have a lot to do, but they wanted nature to come into their garden. And I was really pleased with what we achieved. And in fact, when it was finished, they actually said, I can't believe this is our garden. It was quite a transformation. And I get to see it regularly. And I always take a little video of how the garden looks. So we've got all these little videos over the last, I think it's 3 years now since we designed it. And yeah, I think that's my favourite.
So it's nice to see how it develops after you've done it as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. Because often that's a difficult thing. I can visualize that because I know what that little flower is going to look like or that little plant is going to look like in a few years. But I appreciate if gardening's not your thing and you just see a green, a green plant that's about 3 inches high, it's very difficult to imagine that being like 4 foot high and what's it going to look like and what's it going to go with, Yeah.
So you've had 5 projects. Have you got anything lined up in your near or far future, projects-wise?
Oh, well, we keep saying we'll change how things are at home, actually. And we've got quite a lush garden because I like to sit in the shade. And my husband's not that bothered about sitting in the sun. We like to be out in the garden. So we like it looking quite lush and green. But I think we might simplify it a bit as we get older, and we don't necessarily want to be it being hard work for us. We've got a patch of grass which we keep trying to make nicer, but the birds and the squirrels are against us. So it might be doing something in the garden because we actually quite like sitting in the garden now, sitting and enjoying nature. So not necessarily kind of being slaves to our garden in terms of the upkeep, but actually enjoying being in it, which I think is important because I think a lot of people, they strive to have this beautiful garden without maybe appreciating how much time it's going to take, particularly if you work full time and then you've got this garden. So every weekend it's kind of, this chore of sorting out the garden rather than sitting and enjoying it.
Fair enough. Yeah, we don't really go out in our garden. The neighbouring cats use it as a toilet most of the time. So,
that's a shame.
We heard the bird song the other week when all the flowers were out in the bright colours. There, check out my Instagram grid for that.
I will. Yeah. I was looking at your Instagram grid today, and it's beautiful. It's really
There's a reel
different.
yesterday that's hidden amongst the grid of my garden as it was last week, and it had like masses of purple flowers and pink and red and all sorts, just like this one pan of across the front of my garden, and you could hear all the birds tweeting as well. Unfortunately, you can hear me breathing as well, but I'd kept in the audio because the birds were tweeting as well. So.
Do you know, that happens to me, but when we go to the allotment, I quite often take a video because it will be different. The allotment will look so different from the last week when I was there. But I take the video and, like you say, you can hear the birds and everything. And then when I play it back, this heavy breathing, we can't do anything about it. It's a bit weird.
We're being real. That's the argument there. You got to be real. We're being real.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, keep it real. Yeah.
So, if anyone is intrigued by what you do, and would like to look you up, where can they find you?
Yes. Well, the easiest place is Instagram. So, if you go to Instagram, there's a link to my website, and everything's there. So, if you're not on Instagram, just go to my website, which is maggiesstudiouk.co.uk.
Okay. Thank you. That's straightforward. So thanks for being my guest today. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation. I've certainly enjoyed talking about flowers and gardening, even though I know nothing about flowers.
Thanks so much for inviting me, Jen. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Julie is fondly known as the cooking counsellor. From the coaching den, she helps people who are neurospicy understand themselves and create their own unique recipes for life, utilising the special ingredients their brain and birthright has bestowed upon them. This is not your traditional food cookbook. It is a self-help recipe book that provides the emotional support and practical tips to create a life-changing dish as unique as you and your family are. Julie has been approached many times with the stressful problem, "My child won't go to school, please help." As she has also walked this stressful path and couldn't find a one-stop resource to help, she decided to write a book, helping your child face school or not. Practical recipes and solutions for parents and carers. As a parent, counsellor and late discovered neurospicy person herself, she has stirred the pot, jumped from the frying pan into the fire and got the recipe all wrong trying to help her child with emotionally based school avoidance. Hindsight is such a gift. Julie is not promising that she's perfected the recipe and all the ingredients, as like the difference between vegans and carnivores, all our young people have their own set of individual ingredients and temperaments. Though this book is specifically designed to support families with neurodiverse, emotionally school-avoidant children, she hopes it helps any family who needs that secret ingredient to rise above the common kitchen problems and become a Michelin star chef, competent and confident at helping their child. It covers some of the recipes for life in learning effective communication with authority, techniques, stress management and practical tools. Navigating the daily challenges of juggling school avoidance and life, work, sanity to create a positive educational experience for your child in whatever form that takes. Empowering you with self-belief to do the best with and for your child and advice tailored to your unique situation. As the cooking counsellor, Julie has worked with countless families. She understands the personal struggles of trying to navigate complicated recipes with too little time and not enough emotional ingredients to create a delicious dish. She hopes that this book will help you recognise the common ingredients, create a method ending up with an individual dish that is tasty for all your family's emotional needs when faced with an unforgiving educational system. Let's create recipes for a happy life together. Follow the Cooking Counsellor on Facebook for more recipes for life and stay informed about the book launch, which is coming soon.